Hey, welcome back to another art video. This week I'm going to be talking about the kind of artist advice I haven't heard talked about nearly as much as I think it should. It's the kind of advice that may seem obvious, but still somehow gets taken for granted, but can also go a long way into helping to have a healthy mentality about art, especially when starting out. I'll be using mostly drawing or painting as examples since that's my background, but this advice can be used for any kind of art medium. And as you can see, while I talk, I'll be doing some drawing as well. This is me making my new sticker sheet, which will be up in my new shop soon. It's my first time drawing raccoons, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, let's get started. Tip number 1. It's good to draw only what you want, but keeping an open mind is just as important. I didn't start to really get into art until high school, and at the time, all I wanted to draw was people in an anime style. Like so many others, I was inspired by animation and wanted to become an animator for DreamWorks. I took as many art classes as I could manage at school, but most of the time, they had us drawing still lifes. And I hate still life. Most of it was glass bottles with cups and glasses or a shoe or a candy wrapper. To me, at the time, it was completely boring, and I swore up and down that there was so much more I could learn from drawing the human form than from like a lifeless bottle. Most everyone who knew anything about art told me that I wouldn't learn to draw correctly or well if I only drew cartoons and limited myself to drawing people. Obviously, I was young and naive, but at the time, if I had given in and only drew what others wanted me to draw, things that I had no interest in, and a style I had no interest in, then I probably would have gotten bored and stopped drawing altogether. Because it would have stopped being something I did to fulfill a passion and would have felt more like a chore. But I knew what I wanted to draw, and at the end of the day, I was drawing for myself and not anyone else. That said, it's still very important to keep an open mind about what and how you draw. You'll improve faster if you study different kinds of artists and styles than only the one you were originally inspired by. And it's not uncommon to find a passion for something completely unexpected along the way. I remember in art school, there were many painting majors who fell in love with printmaking after taking only a few classes, and they ended up changing majors and goals all completely. So yes, make what you want to make, how you want to make it, but also be open to trying new things and learning from them. I promise your art will only improve. Tip number 2. Forget about talent, follow your passion. There's an ongoing debate in and out of the artist community about the role talent plays in creating art. Some think only those with great natural talent can make good art. Others argue that talent is irrelevant because good art is made by dedication and hard work, even if certain things come easier to some than others at first. The problem of natural talent ignores all the hours and years the artist devoted to becoming better. Personally, I stand with the second group. I wasn't naturally talented at art, but I did have a passion for it. And passion overrides talent because you can show a talent for something and be noted as being pretty good at it for a beginner, but without passion to learn and improve and have fun with it, that talent isn't going to take you very far. Whereas even if, like most people, you're pretty bad when starting out, then it might take you longer for certain things to click, but passion is going to carry you farther than if you only had talent. Take, for example, those people impressed with your art who say things like, "Oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't even draw a stick figure." Okay, but have you tried? Like, really tried to be good at drawing? Have you put in the time and effort it takes to be good, or have you just doodled in your notebook or taken a high school art class? Because 1, most everyone sucks at first. And 2, If you haven't put in any real effort, then it's weird to assume you'd be any good. Talent can only take you so far before it's overshadowed by those putting in the hours. So don't worry about whether or not you have the talent for art. If you love making art, if the struggle and learning is part of the fun of making art, if you feel that something ignite in you and you just have to do it, then do it. Don't waste your time wondering if you qualify. Tip number 3. Be kind as an artist. Art is not a competition. It can be difficult at times not to compare yourself to other artists. I found there's an unhealthy way to do that and a healthier way to do it, if you find you can't stop yourself. The unhealthy way is to look at an artist you admire and beat yourself up because you don't think you're as good as them, and in your mind, you probably never will be. You may even resent this other artist for their success. This way of thinking is obviously toxic and unhelpful. The healthier way to look at their artwork is with a critical lens, and you list the things that make you like it. What made the art successful? How did they achieve it? What techniques did they use? What medium? How do they use line and color? Every time you find yourself thinking something like, I can never be this good, correct yourself with something like, I may not be there yet, but I can learn from their efforts and my own practice. Because the truth is, first, there will always be someone better. I guarantee you, the artists you look up to so much also have artists of their own they believe to be so much better than them, and so on and so forth. There is no Best Artist Ever award, so there's no point in treating it like a competition. And second, art is completely subjective. The same art that makes me feel all warm and floaty inside, others will walk right past. So instead of thinking of other artists as your competition, think of them as a community of people who share a common passion and goal and who are going through very similar struggles as you. Tip number 4. If you want to make art your career, start your research now. Don't rely on instructors or art school to give you a roadmap to success. The reality is, making a successful career from art is not as straightforward as we'd like it to be. Artists are often undervalued, and it's common for most employers to try to pay as little for art as possible. Art schools may be good at teaching art, but depending on the type of art, they will often be lacking when it comes to career and industry advice. And sometimes your instructors will try, but their advice can be outdated. And it's important for young artists to understand the industry and business side of their chosen crafts. Fortunately, there are a whole lot of working artists on the internet and social media right now who are sharing their stories and who offer advice on how to get ahead and reach your similar goals. There's free and cheap software that will allow you the opportunity to experiment and practice things like illustration and animation before you have to decide what kind of art to pursue in school, or if you even want to go to an art school. YouTube has many videos that teach all forms of art. And then there's online classes like Schoolism, taught by working professional artists. If you go to fan conventions like Comic-Con or AnimeCon, be sure to check out Artist Alley and talk to the artists selling there. Just be polite and try not to take up too much of their time or block others from their booth. Most artists are happy to answer your questions, but they're there to make sales. At the cons, there are also often panel discussions with artists talking about their experiences. Basically, there are many different paths and side roads you can take to become a successful working artist, but it's going to be up to you to figure it all out, because everyone's journey is different, and I highly suggest not putting off your research. Tip number 5. Worry less about finding your style and focus more on mastering the fundamentals. I know everyone wants a cool, unique style, but your style will form naturally as you learn and grow. Style is a combination of all the choices you make when creating based off of things that you like from other artists and your own personal idea of beauty and how you see the world. It takes time to build up and often happens without us realizing. Mastering the fundamentals, by which I mean things like proportions, perspective, form versus shape, color theory, light and contrast, line of action, composition, and so on, is what separates beginners from the rest. Your stylized character isn't going to be all that impressive if you can only draw them from a certain angle and in a certain pose. Learning the fundamentals will allow you to expand your artist vision, and the same fundamentals apply to many, if not all, forms of art. That's why my teacher pushed me for a lot of still life drawing, because if I had the interest to apply myself, I would have learned about form, perspective, shading, and lighting, and would have been training my eyes to really see what was in front of me. All that learned skill could have then been applied to my characters. And once you learn the fundamentals, you'll be better able to break the rules. Look, for example, at a piece by Modigliani. It's because he understood the human form that his simplified, stylized people are believable. He may not be utilizing all the fundamentals, but because he knows them, he's able to pick and choose what rules to bend or break in order to make a painting work. Basically, you have to learn the rules in order to understand how best to break them. Tip number 6. Be selective about who you take art advice and critique from. As artists, we can't really hide from unsolicited opinions about our art. There's always going to be someone, well-meaning or not, who knows just how to fix your art, or how you should sell it, or what you should draw instead. It doesn't help that few people understand how to give good, helpful art critiques. Before you take anyone to heart, it may help to ask yourself, do I value this person's opinion in general? Do I believe they always have my best interest in mind? Do they have any experience with this type of art, and do I enjoy their art? If the answer is no, then you should probably take their critique with a grain of salt. If their critique leaves you fully disheartened and discouraged, then try to ignore it altogether, as that's simply unhelpful and probably unwarranted. If the answer is yes, then take a moment to consider it. Part of being a good artist is being able to take critique well and not be so egotistical as to think that just because you're the artist, you know better than everyone else. If you think it makes your art better, then think of it as a learning experience and don't make it a big deal. I sometimes will have my sister look at a mostly done work in progress if I feel like something is off or missing. She doesn't have the same illustration experience as me, but she enjoys art and I trust her eye and opinion. Sometimes she catches something I missed, and sometimes she'll give advice that I consider but choose not to pursue because I wanted to go in a different direction. When asking for an opinion or critique, it helps to come with specific questions. Does their face look off from this angle? Do you think the background is too saturated or distracting? What emotion do you get from this? If someone is persistent in giving annoying, unsolicited advice, then don't be afraid of setting a boundary with them. If they aren't someone you can just simply block online, then maybe try to explain that the two of you have different tastes in art, and that's okay. But can you please stop giving advice unless I ask for it? And finally, tip number 7. Everything has been done before, but not by you. A lot of artists are concerned about being original, and generally speaking, that's good. We're all tired of Hollywood movie remakes at this point, especially since the remakes are rarely as good as the originals. That said, it's been argued that all of storytelling can be reduced down to only 7 different narrative plotlines. I haven't really spent much time trying to disprove this, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. So when I say that everything has been done before, I mean that literally. But just because it's been done doesn't mean we don't enjoy it. I mean, how many times have you read or watched a story and enjoyed it so much that at the end you think, that was amazing. Now I want to consume something exactly like that, only different. It happens to me all the time. Just like everyone else, I have my favorite story tropes that pull me in every time. Even though I know it's most likely going to happen, I want to be able to see how they pull it off and get a kick of serotonin along the way. So if you're hesitating in making art because you're afraid it's already been done by someone else, then don't be. It has already been done, and that's fine, because no one has ever seen your personal vision of it before, and your take and insight on it might become someone's favorite. To be clear, I'm not saying it's good to take someone else's work and remake it to be your own. Plagiarism is still a thing. I'm just saying that generally, there are no brand new ideas out there, so you might as well make something that speaks to you and you enjoy making, without worrying about being too original. Alright, that wraps up all the tips I have today. I hope you found all this helpful and you're able to move forward with making more art. Please let me know in the comments which tips spoke to you the most, or if you disagree with any altogether. And if you'd like to see more content like this from me, be sure to let me know and subscribe. I have a few ideas I'd like to piggyback off of this, but it's nice to know if anyone wants to listen. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day and happy arting.